right, guys, we're at the time. So, welcome. As you can see, I will be emceeing this event. The true stars of the show are here. We have Wayne Lant, our VP of Partner Operations, and Albert Diaz, our CEO. Guys, if you want to wave hi.
So,
And we
guys,
also have Maji making a special appearance. So, Maji is actually who keeps everyone on track over here at RingLogix. But welcome. So today we have FlowbotAI, and I'm super excited to see all of your names. I wish I could see your faces, but this is turning out to be probably one of the larger events we've ever had at RingLogix. So it's pretty awesome. But what you're going to learn today. So we're going to break down what AI agents really look like in production. You're going to see Albert's going to give a live demo of how agents are built and deployed. And hopefully by the end of this call, you'll know how to pilot this in your own environment. So, as Wayne said a minute ago, if for people who are just joining, please drop questions in the chat. We've hopefully saved enough time to go over those all at the end of the session. So drop them in the chat. We'll get to them during Q&A. Anything we can't get to, we'll always follow up with you. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Albert.
cool. Thank you, Miss Jamie. Appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
What's up, guys? How are you? Albert here. And like Jamie mentioned, the team and I are very excited to have you join us today for the introduction of our new AI voice agent platform, FlowbotAI. Now, we have a lot of information to cover. We've got a lot of questions with the partners we've engaged with, so we're going to try to address as many of those questions proactively. With that said, we obviously can't cover everything in absolute detail within a reasonable 45-minute window. So there will be a lot of follow-up webinars, and throughout the presentation, we're going to identify points where you can look forward to another webinar. So with that said, jumping into my part, I'm going to cover what AI agents are. I'm going to jump right into a demo for you guys. I'm not going to make you wait for it. And then we're going to get into a quick conversation about R&D and what we built, right? What we learned in the process when we were, thinking about what we wanted to build, the requirements that we had, and what we ultimately ended up building. So kind of jumping into it, if I ask most people in the room, what's an AI agent? I think most people would say, yes, I know what an agent is. But still, to make sure that the entire audience is on the same page, we're going to define it, right? And in simple terms, an AI agent is a virtual assistant of sorts that it's able to turn or participate in live calls and perform real business actions, okay? So imagine a virtual assistant that is answering calls, it's answering questions, it's capturing details, it's completing tasks, it's routing and transferring calls for you, and it's escalating when it needs. Now, with that, even though people, might say, yeah, I know what an AI agent is, I still very often get the question, okay, but how does it work and what can it do? Which to me means that there's still a little bit of mystery around it. And what we found is that the best way to kind of remove that mystery and even have the right expectations on voice agents is actually to compare them to people, okay? And this is what I mean. Let's say we hired a brand new support agent, okay? And that support agent, okay, and it could be a support agent, reception, doesn't matter. They need three fundamental things to be able to do their job, okay? The first thing is going to be a good set of instructions, right? This is where you tell that support agent, okay, this is your job, this is your role, this is the tone when you represent the company, this is what you do. You're going to greet callers, you're going to verify them, you're going to collect details, you're going to open tickets, you're going to transfer under these conditions, right? You would tell your employee what to do. Well, in the agent world, we call that a prompt. And a prompt is where you actually put in all of the instructions that tells your agent how to behave, okay? And the more direct and clear and well-structured your prompt is, the better the agent's going to be able to perform. Just like in the real world, the better you give instructions to your employees, the better they can perform for you. Now, the second thing that employees are going to need in order to do their job is access to systems, right? So they're going to need access to CRMs, PSAs, ERPs, billing systems. It doesn't matter, right? You name it, they need access to systems so they can do their work. Well, humans, typically, we access software with a keyboard and a monitor, and that's how we get in there. But in the case of AI agents, they use what's called tools, right? And tools are API functions. So tools is what allows an agent to talk to all the systems that you and your customers are using, be it a ticketing system, a billing system, doesn't matter. And most SaaS-based tools today do have an API to talk to. And then the last thing that that employee would need is specific company knowledge. Yes, that new hire may have gone to your website. They may have learned something about you. They may have gone to your LinkedIn, right? However, it doesn't mean they have specialized information about your company. Policies, product information, routing, dialogue information, whatever it may be, something very specific to you. So you're going to provide that to them in the form of PDFs and knowledge-based articles and things of that sort. Well, on our side, right, in the agent world, that's called knowledge. And very specifically, we run what's called a RAG corpora system, which is as fancy as you can get for AI knowledge systems. We'll talk about that in a bit. And then the last thing is, good expectations. You wouldn't hire a brand new tier 1 agent and just throw them on the floor and have them do every single task overnight, right? A brand new tier 1 agent, you would have them do 2 or 3 fundamental tasks, establish a reputation, make sure that they're good at what they're doing, and then introduce more complex tasks down the road. Well, the same thing with agents, right? You shouldn't expect an agent to just do everything overnight, throw it together. You're going to introduce your agents, you're going to have them do a couple things, and then you're going to iterate and let them grow in maturity. So high level, guys, that's what an agent is, and that's how an agent works. So with that said, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to keep talking, but I'm going to go ahead and jump in a demo for you, and I'm going to show you what our solution looks like. So give me 1 second. I'm going to have to jump screens here. Okay, guys. So right now, for the purpose of this demo, so I can bounce around some demo customers, I'm logged in directly to our NetSapiens PBX. What I'm going to show you right now is available for the reseller access for you and your staff members. And there is a view for office managers as well, in case you wanted to extend access to your customer or your customer's ID department if that wasn't you. Now, the very first thing we're going to notice when we come over to the users tab, we have a new option called AI voice agents, okay? And why is that? Because for all practical purposes, I just finished saying, right, an agent is just like a regular person. So we want to treat it like a regular person as much as possible. So that means they are a regular user like anybody else would be. They have a device registered to that user like anybody else would have. And they can participate in all of the PBX's settings and functions, right? Aside from some new cool stuff I'm going to show you today, everything built into the phone system is native for it. So DID routing, attendant console, call center reports, transcription, sentiment analysis, call recording, everything the phone system has will apply to this. So with that said, we come to the agent tab and we're going to have a familiar view. We're going to see our list of agents. Adding an agent is real easy. I'm going to click the add button on the top right-hand side. First thing I'm going to give the agent is going to be an extension number. And then I'm going to give it a name. We're going to call this webinar demo. I'm going to go ahead and select the model. Now, guys, I'll get into more information about models later on, and we'll have more webinars that fully explain the models we support and how they help you. I'm just going to go ahead and pick a default model for now, the Llama 3 model, which is, I think, one of the best ones. We're then going to pick a voice. So there's a particular voice that I like, which is called conversationalist. I'm going to go ahead and grab that one. Now, when it comes to voices, we do support over 160 voices. We're including right now with the solution, it includes 11 labs, which is the best of the best, and in-world as well. And that's all built in. You guys don't have to worry about bringing tokens or keys or anything of that sort. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to drop in a prompt. Now, if you have a prompt, cool, copy, paste it, hit save, and we're done. If you don't have a prompt, okay, you can leave it blank. You can fill it in later. And then if you're looking for ideas, if you want to deliver like a simulation type demo to your customer, or you guys want to deploy them internally, we do have some demo prompts that you can grab. So go ahead and grab any of these, and it's going to drop a prompt in for you. And that prompt will simulate what that type of agent can do for you, right? So a reservation booking agent will talk to you about the hotel, the restaurants, the events that it has. It'll book a confirmation for you. It'll send things to your room. It'll act out as if it was that, right? And you can use your imagination to figure out what the rest of them would do. And then we'll also get into more detail when we do trainings, but we also have the prompt helper. So the prompt helper is pretty cool because if you've ever worked with a prompt before, you know that inside the prompt, you got to let it know what tools and what knowledge to be able to use. So the prompt helper is like an inline software editor where you can just write the word tool, and it's going to automatically show you the tools that are in the system. So you can just select it and add it to your prompt for you. But again, guys, we'll get into detailed training. We'll show you all of that there. So once you're done, you hit the add button and you've got a new agent inside the system. Okay, so literally adding an agent is as simple as that. Now, once we have an agent in the system, and just so you guys know, everything's auto provisioned for you guys, right? So there's nothing else you have to take care of. This user was just provisioned onto the PBX, a device was created for them, the user was provisioned on the FlowbotAI platform, and it was provisioned on our agent SIP gateway, which is what connects the actual user to the AI agent infrastructure. Now, once we're here, we're able to actually manage our agent. So I'm just going to go ahead and click edit on one of these at random. So once I go in, I have the complete management experience in a single pane of glass, right? So on my profile tab, I have all the original stuff that we set it up with. Now, if I want to go ahead and going top to bottom, I'll cover some of these settings for you. So we already talked about the name. We have a voice. The next thing we have is language code. So our agents are multilingual. They do support over 26 different languages, right? Now, opposite of popular belief, right? Just because an agent can speak multiple languages doesn't necessarily mean you should. If any of you guys speak multiple languages, you might know this. You think with different contexts and different languages, right? So yes, it can do it, but if you want to lock it down or if you want to provide an agent in a particular language, what we do is we give you the ability to select a voice in that language and even add a BCP language code, which is kind of like an ISO code. That's what tells the model to actually think and respond in a native way to that particular language. Down here, we have what's called temperature. Temperatures to control the randomness of the agent. And then at the very bottom, we have advanced voice activity detection settings, which I'll talk about later on. So guys, that's the main thing. Everything that's got to do with the persona and profile of your agent, we're going to find it right here. The next thing we're going to get into is tools, right? So where the profile is everything about how the agent behaves and what it does. Tools are about everything the agent is able to do, actually execute for you, okay? So we do have different types of tools in the system. The first type of tool we'll talk about is what we call the built-in tools, right? So the built-in tools are the ones that say public. These are tools that bring common functionality to your agent. So the ability to cold transfer, warm transfer, hang up, and very soon leave voicemail as soon as we release outbound calling. And when it comes to cold and warm transfer, guys, that's exactly like you expect, right? So cold transfer is a send and pray, unsupervised, and warm transfer is a supervised transfer. It'll wait till the destination picks up. After the destination answers, it'll play a summary of the call to the agent that answered, and then it goes ahead and executes the transfer. Now, adding tools, okay, is really, really simple. So what we do is we have different types of tools. The first one we'll talk about is custom tools, right? So this is like a bring your own tool. So if you want to integrate your agent to just about any API that's out there, you're going to use this no code, low code type experience. So if you guys have used this before, it's pretty simple. You're going to give it a tool name. You're going to give a tool description, which is really important because the AI agent, the model itself is able to see this description and it uses this description to actually engage with the tool better. You're going to copy and paste your API URL. You're going to add all the parameters for the tool itself for the API call. So for example, if it's a get ticket, you probably need a ticket ID parameter, or you need an email ID parameter or something of the sort. If it's a create ticket, you're going to want a status, a subject, a body. So just to kind of give you some ideas on what they would be. And we do support both dynamic, static, and automatic parameters. And again, we'll get into more trainings. We'll explain what all of those are. Now, this is designed to be flexible so you can connect any system out there. And no code, low code is supposed to be to give access to the average guy. But let's be fair. I'm not a developer, and I would say that I'm probably more comfortable writing out an API call, right, than using a no code, low code system sometimes. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to find something faster, a way for you to be able to accelerate your deployments. And our answer to that was integrations with the most common workflow platforms that are out there. So we integrated the solution to Zapier, N8N, and Make.com for you guys. And the way it works is that we actually have native apps inside of these stores. So as an example, I'll click this link, and it's going to actually bring me to the Flowbot app. From here, I can actually activate the app and then start building out a workflow and have it inside of the workflow itself. So the way that it works is you or your customer can have your own Zapier account. You activate the Flowbot app inside of the Zapier, Make, or N8N store, marketplace, repository, respectively. You build out your workflow, or you add our app to your existing workflow. And then inside of the workflow application, you're going to copy the API key from ours. You're going to paste it in Zapier or the other workflow. You're going to hit save. The moment you hit save, it's going to automatically create a link between your workflow and the agent itself. and it will automatically auto-provision the tools and the settings that it needs for your agent to be able to call that workflow from the prompt itself. So the idea is give you fast tools that are easy for you to create fast deployments. Now, the Zapier apps are available in the stores, and they are generic to the Flowbot brand. However, we do identify that you guys are likely going to want to deploy your own apps, right? Have a little bit of brand recognition. So the apps are available for free to our partners. We're making them available as open source. So as soon as you come on board, you have the option to actually grab the files and to submit them to the store yourselves. If you need a little bit of assistance with that, we can offer professional services and we can help you with the deployment. But the reality is it's really easy once you've got everything done. Now, guys, the next thing we're going to talk about is going to be knowledge, right? So there's this misconception out there. You know, sometimes I hear the word train being used in these demos inappropriately. And I want to make something very clear. You know, models are trained when they're created. And then after the model is released, that's it. It doesn't have any more information. There's no such thing as training the model again. What you do is you supplement the model's information with a specific knowledge. And knowledge has to be designed in a very particular way. And what we do is we use a RAG corpora system. And I'm going to talk about this in the next slides. So the way we add knowledge is the first thing we do is we create a collection. So think of a collection as kind of like a folder, right? And you're going to give that collection a name. So think of it as troubleshooting guides for IT, or product information for X, right? And then all the relevant documents on that subject, you're going to put them inside that same collection. So we add a collection to the system, and then we start adding sources. So sources are the actual content material. Every time you add a source, you're going to give it a name, you're going to give it a description, and then you have the ability to add URLs like knowledge base, FAQ type URLs, or you can actually upload documents, and we support all the common file types, right? So PDFs, Word docs, text files, markdown files, etc. Now, what's different about this versus just a regular knowledge system or storage system, right, is that we're not storing your files, right? So in a RAG corpora system, what we're actually doing is we're taking the information you give us, the name, the description, and the files, and that's being run through an LLM, and it's being tokenized, okay? And at that moment, we take the content and the context, and that gets stored in a vector database. And what it does is that it allows the agent to engage with the vector database and to actually query and ask questions and be able to retrieve what it likely thinks is the most logical information for the questions being asked. Now, the reason this is important is if you don't use this type of system, you run the risk of having more hallucinations, right? Because the agent may look at too many files or may look at too many things. And when it does that, if any of these things conflict with each other, the agent's going to use reasoning to fill in the gaps, right? And that's typically where you get your hallucinations or your wrong answers. So all you got to do is create a collection, upload your files. As soon as you start uploading your files, you're going to see the status of the files themselves, if they're ready to go or not. So as soon as they're ready, that means you can prompt them inside the agent prompt and you're ready to use them. Next thing we have here, guys, are controls. This is going to be call control. So the first thing we have is the greeting itself. You want to control who's the first speaker. Is it the agent or is it the user? There's different use cases on inbound and outbound calls. And then you can have a first message greeting. So if you want a hard-coded greeting, you can drop it here. If you want the greeting to be part of the prompt, you can put it there as well. If you want it to be flexible, you can have the prompt make it flexible. And then any kind of first greeting delays you may want to add. From there, we proceed to what we're going to call your call settings, right? So the initial output medium, voice or text, right now it's voice, but we are going to be releasing a text-based chat agent later down the road. That's why you see that. A join timeout, a maximum call duration to make sure your agents aren't staying on calls forever, and then a message in case the time gets exceeded. And on the very bottom, inactivity messages, right? So should there be a period of inactivity throughout the call, what would you like the agent to say, how long, and then what behavior do you want them to have after the inactivity message is played? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you deploy an agent. Now, after we've deployed an agent, it's time to start using and testing that agent, right? And this is where we saw some other solutions be a little clunky. Typically, you have to call the agent by some sort of like Twilio number that they give you or sell you, or you got to access the agent individually. So here, what we did was we built a test agent tool right into the management pane. So I won't be able to do it today because we didn't share audio, and this is we're on a screen share. But essentially, what I can do is I can click here can actually start a call. It's peacocking. I'm going to start a call and I'm going to be talking to the agent in real time. Okay. As I'm talking to the agent, it's going to be showing me a transcription on the screen, and I'm going to see everything that the agent's saying to me and everything that I'm saying back. In addition to that, right, if you're debugging or diagnosing your agent as you're deploying it, if you ask the agent a question and it's going to do a lookup in the knowledge system, or you ask the agent to perform a task like open a ticket, you'll actually see the execution of that knowledge lookup, or you'll see the execution of the ticket, and you'll see the API call, and you'll see the responses, and you're going to have all the event data in between. Right. So the idea is we're giving you everything you need in full transparency so you can be able to set up and manage your agents. So guys, that's how we deploy it. A couple last things that we'll talk about before we go back to the presentation. So inside of here, we should have an agent with some call history. Okay. So inside of here, in addition to the fact, like I said earlier, it's fully native with NetSapiens. So all your call history, your SIP logs, your cradle to grave, your admin panels, everything works exactly the same. But the solution does include its all call summary feature, right? So if we come over to the call summary, we can see every call that the agent's taken for you. If we come into one of the calls themselves, we can see the transcription like I was just talking about. So this was a relatively chatty support agent that was on purpose. So I call in and it welcomes me. It asks me to confirm my number and my PIN. It verifies me. It asks me what I want to do. I say I want to open up a ticket. It opens up the ticket. It starts giving me information. And as you can see, we continue through the dialogue. So you'll be able to see everything that was said throughout the call. And in addition to that, guys, as we continue adding more analytics and settings to it, you're going to see all of those analytics begin to appear here as well. Last couple things is we do have some tenant level settings here on the top right-hand side. So for the tenant level settings, we do have the ability to see all tools for the tenant itself, and you can manage the tools globally. The same thing goes for your knowledge. You can see all knowledge. So if you have a particular knowledge base that's being used by multiple agents, you have the ability to come in here and update your knowledge base at all time, and it's available to the agent the next time they do a query. And then the very last thing is the ability to preview all the voices. So we do have a voices catalog. You can come in, you can do a search, you can go through them. And then on the right-hand side, if we have previews available, you'll see previews and you'll be able to click that and actually listen to it. And before we go live, guys, you're going to see previews for all of them. And that's it. Jamie, do you think I missed anything I should be covering today? Yes, one more thing. Call routing. I don't have a phone number, guys. The last thing I would have shown you here, and I'm sorry I don't have a phone number, is the call routing. So what we've done for you is there is multiple ways to route calls to your agents, but the most common way is going to be to route a DID directly to it. So inside of the call routing option, you do have a new treatment. That treatment is called AI voice agent. And when you select that option, you're going to have a list of agents, just like you would have a list of users or a list of auto attendants. And you can go ahead and assign them there, call your DID, your agent starts to ring. So Jamie, I think that's everything. Should we go back to the
no, you got
presentation?
it. Yeah.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Let me know when you see your screen again.
Yeah, we see it.
Okay. So guys, what we just showed you was our user experience for deploying agents. It's the end result of what we wanted to build. Now, that experience that we just saw is driven through very intentful design options, right? And essentially what I want to do is I want to talk real quick about the R&D journey, what we did, what we learned, and why we built what we built. So when we started the R&D journey, the promise was wild, right? Human-like voice agents that could resolve requests instantly. They're on 24/7. They never get moody. They never call out. They just work their hours. They don't check in. I mean, the promise was huge. The only problem is that as we started testing some of the different products out there, and I'm sure you guys have tested some of these as well, right? I won't say any names. We pushed those systems into like real world conditions, right? Noisy offices, speakerphone audio, people talking in the background, executing tasks, calling it at different times of the day. And when we did this and we really pushed the agents, the cracks started to show up pretty fast, okay? And what we started observing across a lot of these agents that were out there was execution speed and speech pacing was varying way too much, either throughout the call or from call to call. It just felt like the experience was changing for no apparent reason, right? Agents often spoke over you or they had really awkward pauses. So like their turn taking was broken, right? I don't know if you've seen this before. You may provide an answer or ask a question, and it feels like the agent's just waiting way too long. That's what we were going through. Some agents started sounding robotic, and this wasn't related, but at the time it was like even with smart LLMs, right? And I'll say one name here, like a ChatGPT type LLM, right? You would use something like that, yet it still sounded that way. We couldn't quite understand why. Call routing and transfers were clunky, right? So a lot of these solutions, either they're just built for Twilio and that's pretty much all you got, or you have to connect to them through WebRTC, or you got to forward to the DIDs, but it didn't really feel like they were built to be native as part of a phone system, right? And this is a phone product. And then the last thing was way too often, we noticed that we were getting too many confident answers that were just incorrect or fabricated, right? In the AI world, we call that hallucinations. And the thing is, we weren't just seeing this. It wasn't edge cases. It wasn't like one here and one there. But the reality is, when we evaluated these 5 or so vendors, we saw all of these things happen at different times with pretty much most of them. So from there, we had to figure out, okay, why was this happening, right? It wasn't, our position on it wasn't that AI agents aren't ready to go. It wasn't that AI agents can't deliver the promise, but rather, why aren't they delivering it, right? And what we discovered was a lot of these symptoms, a lot of these issues were symptoms of the same architecture problem. And that was, in our observation, that a lot of the AI voice agent players that are out there today, they're trying to build real-time voice agents using text native components that weren't optimized for real time. And in many cases, SIP was an afterthought, right? It was not part of what they were considering. So what did we actually learn? Okay, why were these things happening? So the first thing is that most of the solutions out there, they are transcription first, okay? They are pipeline based. And what that means is if you've used any AI agent where you have the option to pick your transcription vendor, and then you have the option to pick your LLM, like ChatGPT, Claude, or something like that. And then you have your option to pick your text-to-speech vendor, okay? That's what's called a pipeline system. And the way that system works is it has to transcribe the audio and then hand it over to the LLM. Well, that's the beginning of the problem right there. Because when you transcribe, you're adding a little bit of lag. You absolutely have the ability to add errors, and you lose the conversational signals through text chunking, because the transcription is happening in chunks. So what does that mean, right? When you say something and how you say it, and how tight it is to the thing you said before and the thing you said after, has a lot to do with how you perceive what's being said. And it has a lot to do with understanding if a person actually stopped talking, or if perhaps there was a conversational pause, if there's an emotion behind it. And the fact that we were chunking the text in a transcription meant that we were losing those conversational cues. Turn-taking breaks when voice activity detection is weak or overly dependent on the chunk text. So the idea that sometimes the agents were talking over us or taking too long is because the voice activity, the VAD settings, were just overly weak. And because you're relying on text chunks, that means you're relying on how many words you get or how many seconds you have. And because that changes between different people, different models, different networks, it's almost impossible to find that perfect blend. The next thing is that shared infrastructure makes performance unpredictable. So I'm going to use the ChatGPT example, right? So when you're using a model like ChatGPT, which is really designed for chat, right, for text, those models are run on shared infrastructure. And the actual chat, right, the actual engagements, they're typically batched for micro efficiency, okay? And they're distributed across their network. Well, that means that you're creating a little bit of latency, and where in a text world, if you ask ChatGPT a question and it takes a tenth of a second or 3/4 of a second to answer, it doesn't matter. In the real-time world, when you're having a conversation, those variations in a quarter second, half a second, 3/4 second, a whole second, that's what makes a conversation feel natural or not. And then the last thing was a lot of these systems, and people are catching up, but a lot of the knowledge systems were not designed for AI. And if you're not using a knowledge system designed for AI, then your hallucination risk are going to go through the roof. So this is exactly what we identified, and we said, these are the things that we need to fix. We're less worried about a checklist of features, and we're more worried about delivering a good experience by addressing these problems that most agents are having. So at the end of the day, what was our conclusion? A voice agent that works in production cannot be a chatbot wrapped in a call. It just doesn't work, right? We had to build something better. We had to build something that was speech native for real-time conversations and practical deployments. And that for us meant natural conversation pacing and faster responses, consistent performance on the conversations between them and within them, reliable turn taking so you don't have those awkward pauses or agents that are interrupting you, best-in-class knowledge so you can reduce or mitigate the hallucinations that models may typically have on their own, flexible integration so that you don't just have to build in a tool every time you do something, but you rather have workflows that enable you to connect to 7, 8, 10,000 different apps overnight. And then a native UCaaS routing experience, right? We don't want you having to buy numbers from Twilio. We don't want you to have to get numbers that you can't port. We want you to use the numbers that you have right now with the services you have right now. And we want you to be able to engage with your agent without having to forward to the PSTN or forward back, but rather have a real transfer. Because at the end of the day, guys, you know, your customers are asking for AI, but your customers don't want AI, okay? Your customers want outcomes. And this is what we believe is necessary to be able to deliver those outcomes. So we get into the FlowbotAI outcome stack. You know, what exactly did we build and how do we build it to address these very specific items that we're talking about? So on the conversations that feel natural, speed and turn taking, okay? These are the three big needle movers and how we deliver this. So the first things first is we use what's called a multimodal LLM, okay? And the difference there is a multimodal LLM is one that's designed to have multiple inputs. And in our case, what we've done is we created an adapter to the model that allows the model to ingest audio directly, okay? So unlike the pipeline systems that we just talked about where the audio has to be transcribed and then the transcription is turned into chunks and then the chunks are delivered over to the model, in our case, we bypass that altogether. We go audio directly into the model, okay? And then the model has specialized training that allows it to identify paralinguistic cues like tone, cadence, and pitch, which are typically lost in the translation itself, okay? So we get rid of latency and we improve the signal cues that the agent is able to have. The next thing we do is we run the infrastructure on we run the calls on dedicated infrastructure, right? So we're not using a shared inference pool. We're not bouncing around or micro batching. Actually, from the moment the call starts, we actually dedicate GPU resources to that call for the entire duration of the call, right? So that's where we make sure that it's consistent and that you don't have any kind of variation because you're in the same place the whole time. And then the last thing is it's a multi-layer VAD system where we take traditional VAD. We have a very aggressive traditional VAD. We actually do sampling at a 32 millisecond frame rate. And the idea is that we want to determine speechiness. Is there any human audio inside of there or not? Then we augment that with neural VAD, where we have a model that's actually able to take more of the paralinguistic cues and what they call prosody cues. And then we have additional hardware components that handle noise canceling and echo cancellation. And all of this is designed to make sure that your turn taking feels natural and that you're able to properly distinguish, right, through emotional behaviors, tonal behaviors, the difference between still speaking, pause to think, or finish talking altogether. The next thing we have, guys, is, you know, so we're delivering good conversations. Now we got to deliver good actions, right? So we saw that we have tools built in there, and we saw we have different types of tool flavors, right? So we do have the built-in tools, which are ready to go, and that Rolodex or that catalog will continue to grow. So those are common things that you need. You don't have to do anything, just turn them on and use them. Then you do have the no-code, low-code experience for custom tools, which means you have a bring-your-own-tool type integration experience. Any vendor API, any private API, anything you want to connect to, as long as it supports, you know, some sort of standard API type authentication, like a bearer token or credentials, you can talk to that system. And then workflow connectors or faster deployments, right? Just because tools are easy to build doesn't mean we want to build them. And the reality is an agent can have access to 10, 20, 30 tools. It doesn't necessarily make it a good idea. The less tools an agent has access to, sometimes the better. That's what we found in our testing. So a lot of times it is good if you have a particular action that's going to do 5 or 6 things. For example, you want to open a ticket, you want to maybe notify an on-call team, you want to send a message on Slack, you want to do 3, 4, 5 things. It's usually better to create the workflow, have the workflow do those 5 things for you, and then your agent is just going to trigger the workflow one time. It helps improve the reliability and the predictableness that everything is going to get done for you. And then the last couple things, guys, is knowledge that stays grounded. You know, the hallucination thing is big, right? The first way to lose trust in agents is to have it start making things up to you. And like I explained before, the problem with agents is that their ultimate goal for existing is to satisfy you. So when you ask it a question, you're going to get an answer. And I will hold another session today. I just said something incorrect. I said you're going to get an answer. It's not an answer. It's an assumption, right? And I'm happy to do a webinar and kind of talk about that. But for conversation, we're gonna call it an answer, even though it's wrong. So you're gonna get an answer. It wants to answer you. But the problem is, like I said before, if it's looking at data that isn't properly compartmentalized and separated, okay, and it has access to that data, it mixes the facts together. And when you mix facts together, you always have gaps, right? Gaps that maybe are not so obvious to us as humans. And the agent fills in the gaps with reasoning. And that's where the hallucinations come. So what we have is a retrieval augmented generation system. It's called RAG. And during the call itself, the agent is able to submit an inquiry to the RAG system. And then the RAG system is able to use that along with some intelligence to go through the data that it has available to provide information back to the agent, oftentimes more than one answer, so that the agent can use reasoning and context for what's happening in the call to decide what information it wants to use to provide the answer. And like we said, we do support URL crawling and all the popular document types. And then the last thing, guys, is the native PBX experience, right? So we did show it to you. It is fully native to NetSapiens. It isn't yet another platform. It is fully automated, and it's going to behave just like a PBX endpoint and fit into all your standard natural flows. So you can route a DID to it. You can dial it. You can transfer calls to it. You can add an agent to a queue, ring group, or auto attendant if you wanted to. You can apply all your standard time of day routing, holiday routing, priority routing, failover rules. Anything that you would do on a user super fancy, like the routing users, you can do it here. And it does have out-of-the-box support, like we showed before, cold transfer, warm transfer, and DTMF, both inbound and outbound.
So before we move to the next thing, we got a number of questions. I think it'd be helpful to answer some of these so we don't have too many of them stacked up at the end. Albert, Chris has a question. If a client has a different phone system, can we use the FlowbotAI agent to connect to, say, like a Vonage line?
That's a great question. That's actually one we're going to talk about on the last slide. Wayne's going to cover that, but I'll give you the short answer. Yes, soon. Okay, so the Flowbot AI platform itself was built as an API first platform, and then that platform has what we call multiple consumption modules. The first consumption module we built was for NetSapiens that has all the auto provisioning around it. The next consumption model we're building is for a standalone SIP agent. And the standalone SIP agent, you can connect it to any system or service. So it can operate on its own and transfer in and out, or you can actually register it to a 3CX, PBX, an Asterisk server, a Mitel. If you have the credentials for your Vonage service, for your Nextiva service, you could actually register to that service as well. And the cool thing is you'll be able to register the same agent to multiple systems. So if you have a client right now and maybe they have 3-4 PBXs in different locations, one agent can be registered to all 3-4 PBXs and provide the same consolidated service.
I've got.
And guys, real quick, I launched the partner poll while we answer questions just to save time. So if you guys don't mind hitting up the poll while we're listening and answering questions, that would be awesome. And then I'll kind of end it after this little Q&A session, okay?
Yeah, guys, in the partner poll, that's very, very helpful for us. I really appreciate everybody's feedback. These are the questions that help us guide the future, and they're the ones that help us understand where you're at, what you're thinking. So if everybody can participate, we do appreciate it. Jamie, you wanna sound off a couple more questions while they knock out the poll?
Wayne, I didn't know if you were checking them out or if HIPAA compliant. Is it HIPAA compliant?
We do have a HIPAA compliant option. It is an add-on to the service itself. So once you guys get access to the documents, we can talk about that. But you do have a HIPAA compliant option, yeah.
Cool. Let's see. Michael asked about a test phone number to call, but we don't have a Michael, we don't have a direct test number for you to call, but we'll have a little surprise for you then that I think you'll be happy with. That'll probably answer that question for you.
Yeah, a test number will be made available soon. And guys, you will see there will be a day very soon where you're going to call RingLogix for support, and you're going to have a FlowbotAI agent call you, answer your call for you.
Let's see. Claudio asked, does an agent have a limit of concurrent calls?
So the short answer is no. okay? Agent doesn't have a limit. The long answer is agent infrastructure is not the same as regular infrastructure. They run off GPUs, not CPUs. You know, a lot of us, we complain how expensive processors are. Let me tell you, you don't know how expensive the processors are till you start buying and renting GPUs, right? It's just another animal. So yes, right? Now, unlike the SIP world where you can just scale to 1,000 calls from a Monday to a Tuesday and nobody cares, it's fine, that's okay. In the agent world, that level of scaling requires a little bit of forecasting and planning to make sure that the GPU resources are made available during the time. But short answer is, yeah, you can take as many calls, no limitations.
Cool. PCI compliant?
That's a good question. I'd have to take a look at it. You know, we do PCI DSS compliance every year. I haven't considered to check if it is. I would argue that meeting the HIPAA compliance standards likely means that it's meeting all the PCI DSS compliance standards. However, right, the solution itself is not what makes it PCI DSS compliant. Is how you use it, what you're giving the agent access to, and everything is doing in between. So on the technology side, you likely have what you need in place, but you got to make sure that the operations side of it continue to match the requirements.
Claudio had a follow-up question to the concurrent calls. He said, so should he really be making an agent for each task, like one for sales, one for service, or can one agent do it all?
So we're going to have a webinar just talking about this, but I'm going to go back to what I said before on purpose, right? So you can see how it's grounded. So like if you had one employee, right, would you ask them to do everything under the sun? And if you did, would you really expect them to be good at everything, right? And the answer is no. So you should look at agents the same way, right? So yeah, you can have a big agent that does a lot of things, but the more things it does, the more that could possibly go wrong. The more context you have in your prompting, the more conflicts you can have in the prompting itself. So usually it's good to start small and then slowly add. And usually it's good to implement what we're calling call stages, right? So think of calls as stages and implement an agent per stage or implement an agent per use case. So for example, you may have a triaging agent, that's the one that's answering your calls, understanding what the customer wants, and then routing to your support agent or your billing agent, right? And then your support agent may have a scope that it will troubleshoot ABC, but anything above that, it considers tier 2, and then that transfers to a human, or perhaps it even transfers to a tier 2 agent. And then that tier 2 agent isn't doing all the fluffy, stuff that it did before. That tier 2 agent is very specialized in troubleshooting a particular matter. So yeah, I mean, there isn't a short answer to that. It's you can have it do many things, but sometimes it is better to break it up into many agents.
And we do have a couple questions about, besides the call summary, call sentiment or tone, which I think you did mention, Albert, that's coming soon, right? As far as in that summary, you'll be able to identify, analysis, right, or sentiment.
So yeah, so it's a unique conversation. So the solution itself is compatible with the current NetSapiens sentiment analysis feature, right? And if you guys don't have access to that feature, you can reach out to Success. We can get you access to that feature, right? And that's a standalone service. However, the agent itself is able to perform sentiment analysis. In one of my personal demos, okay, for the agents in my lab, right? I have an agent that is configured to measure sentiment on the call. It's part of the prompting, right? If the caller gets upset, if the caller starts getting an attitude, if the caller starts cursing, I want you to execute tool notify Albert in the background. And when it executes that tool, it's actually a Zapier workflow, okay, that is doing a couple things, and that includes sending me a message on Teams, okay, to let me know that it's that someone's upset. And as part of our lab, we're going to talk about the API, me actually replying back to the agent, kind of like listen, whisper, barge, me replying back to the agent. So the whole point is the agent and the model can do sentiment analysis. And if you wanted, you could ask the agent to, as an example, perform a sentiment analysis summary, or to identify things, to write that summary for you, to alert you on that summary. So you can continue using the NetSapiens sentiment analysis, but you can also have the agent do it for you internally. If the agent does it for you, there's no additional cost. It's just part of using the model.
Cool. Let's see. And then
Amy,
we're going to let questions. Do you want
Do
to
you want to
keep
hold off the
going
rest of
and
the
wait till the
questions?
end?
Yeah, you want to hold the rest of the questions till the end?
Yeah, we can do that.
Or do you
We got
do we have
through a
a lot
lot
we
of
want to
them.
keep numbers from
Everyone's
out?
asking when they can get their hands on it, but stay tuned, guys. Stay till the end, and you won't miss the surprise for you.
Yeah, all the information will be there, guys. How to get started and how to get access.
Cool.
Okay,
And
Jamie,
last
the
chance
partner
to end
poll.
the poll. I'm gonna end it in 2 minutes, gang. So if you haven't taken the poll, we appreciate you doing so. If you've already done it, thank you.
Yeah, guys, we'll give you 1 more minute if you can please knock that out for us, and then Jamie, once you close it, we'll move forward.
Yeah, it's okay. I don't think you can. I can close it on the back end if you guys want to move forward. No biggie.
Okay, we'll go. All right, guys. So for the next part of the presentation, I'm going to hang it over to my partner in crime, Mr. Wayne Lance. Wayne's going to talk to you guys about some of the common use cases and some of the business insights. And again, he's going to have some more webinars down the road with more detailed information.
Just as a reminder, you've got the PowerPoint, so I'm going to ask you to flip to the next slides, if you don't mind.
I got it. I got my spinny finger here.
Yeah. So in anticipation of this, guys, you're going to have a new solution. Your customers are going to find out you've got a voice AI agent. Obviously, they're going to want to know, what can it do? Tell me what it can do. And in fact, a lot of them are going to have things that they want it to do, and they're going to come to you with a lot of different use cases. At a very high level, the 4 primary use cases that we've gotten the most attention on to date is these 4. Receptionist AI agent. Now, you guys might have seen that RingCentral had been one of the first to release a voice AI agent for this particular purpose. I think if you think about what the receptionist does, it's pretty straightforward in terms of its capabilities. Greets a caller, answers questions, routes calls, books appointments. From an opposite perspective, we've got sales agents. So somebody's going to call our agent, and they're going to potentially ask about products. So the agent can answer inquiries related to products or other things that it's been fed in its RAG. It'll qualify leads, capture potential requirements for later workflow to sales, say like through via CRM system. Support agent. So this is an agent that is going to handle some common requests, maybe triage some items or issues, I should say. Capture some required information, either update a ticket or create a ticket. And then scheduling. Scheduling is been a very, very common request. And in fact, we've seen a lot of that. And I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the industries or verticals where we've seen probably the most interest in this. But again, pretty straightforward in terms of the activities that this agent is going to do. It's going to book an appointment, confirm an appointment, reschedule an appointment, or trigger a reminder, an update, or respond to triggers for reminders and updates later on as well. So if you can go to the next slide. When we start to look at this on a vertical perspective, every vertical is going to have its own unique, I'm going to call it business case for an AI agent. They're going to look at, what can I do to, get ROI off of this investment, but also what brings me benefit as a business. And we have a number of them listed here. I'm just going to kind of orient you a little bit to the slide. We have the industries, we have the actions or the outcomes that they're looking for, and we have tools and knowledge that we expect to see within these industries. So I'm not going to go through every one of these here. This is going to be a slide that you'll be able to receive later on. You'll read it. If you have opportunities in any of these verticals, or if you've got questions around how to approach any vertical, just reach out to me or Jamie or your PGM, and we'll walk through in a little bit more detail how to sort of dissect and walk through this a little bit. But just taking healthcare as an example here, we've seen a lot of interest here, and part of the reason is there's a lot of calls that the practices and clinics and things get that are around relatively simple tasks like scheduling, reminders, changing of appointments, things like that, and billing. So there's a substantial ROI that they see here. And one of the things that I think drives their interest is they can immediately pinpoint those things because they have call centers or they have PBXs that have told them what kind of call or how many calls they're getting, and they have a good understanding of what's happening within their environments. In these particular cases, really what you're looking at from a tools perspective is there's integrations to the EMR. So we may be pulling data out of the EMR. We may be workflowing into the EMR or out of the EMR. So there's a lot of opportunity to integrate into the system's EMR or EHR that they have today. Knowledge is really built around policies for the most part. Now everybody has their own unique interpretation, so every customer is going to have a different set of SOPs, potentially different knowledge, potentially different practices with doctors with different capabilities. That's knowledge that we're going to need to have in order to implement a effective agent there. Skipping down, probably the thing that maybe you guys are most interested in is, and I saw several questions, how do I get started? When can we get a demo? This last part is maybe something you guys really want to think about. So probably the best way for you to get experience at this is to implement this internally for yourself. Put it on your HQ, get comfortable with it. I think something simple like a AI receptionist can add a lot of value. And you've got something now that I'm going to call as a bit of a sales tool. So when your customer calls you, gets a good experience with your agent, they're more likely to ask a question. Hey, what is that? Tell me about that. How do I get that? So I'd say, this may be one of the first things we work on. We're going to go through training where you're actually going to learn to configure some basic agents. And this is, part of what Jamie will explain what's coming. But I think this is probably the very first place I would start if I were any of you, because it's a great learning place and easy enough to integrate to PSAs or CRMs. So if we're talking ConnectWise or Datos, Autotask or anything else, right? We're not really constrained by applications given the workflow tools that we have. We've got access to over 10,000 applications that we can likely integrate to. So this is a good thinking piece for you guys. As we move forward, you'll start to formulate your own opinions. But if you've got customers that are sitting in these verticals and you go, I got somebody I think is right for this, reach out to us. Let us know. We want to work with you to kind of help plan that out. You want to go to the next slide?
Yeah, and Wayne, we got one missing from this list, which is, I think, the simplest, lowest hanging fruit for everybody, for ourselves as service providers and for our customers. And that's an answering service, right? A lot of customers are paying $1, $2 a minute for an answering service. And let's be realistic, they don't provide the best quality, right? When you're using an answering service, you typically get a random agent in a random call center that's just reading a script from the screen. And most answering services, they don't really log into your ticketing systems. They don't have access to your platforms. They just send out an email and then you got to work off that email. So this gives you the opportunity to identify all your medical clients or even you guys internally and to replace those expensive answering services that don't really deliver a good experience. Replace them with an AI agent who can do exactly what the other agent answering service can do, but better. And they can actually log tickets. They can look up information. They can take it a step further for a substantially lower cost than you would pay for the answering service. So I do think that's like the lowest hanging fruit and the easiest thing to deploy for both yourselves and your customers.
Excellent.
And Maji told us we were going to go over, but please hang tight till the end, everybody. I know that we're probably going to go over, and I do appreciate if you can give us extra time, but you are going to want to wait till the end if you can hang tight.
I was just about to say
we still have over 98% of our attendees here, which is kind of wild, right? So that's really exciting. Guys, we are almost done, and we're going to touch it up with exactly how you get access.
So we're not going to cover pricing today. I saw some questions. That is for a later discussion. So we're going to have another webinar. We're going to go through pricing and packages and how you take this to market. But I think it's really helpful just to kind of understand, at least conceptually, what's going on in the market. As I mentioned before, RingCentral was the first one to kind of make a splash with their AI receptionist. But I think it's important to note there's a lot of details around this that you're going to want to pay attention to. They're coming out at a price of $59 per month. That gives you 100 minutes. That's 59 cents per minute if you guys do the math, which I know you guys can all do that kind of math. You're going to make really good margins at the price points we're coming out. I think you're going to see markups of 70–80% on this. You're going to feel real good about, I think, your ability to not only compete, because I think there's some limitations around what both Nextiva and RingCentral are offering, but I think their price points allow us to come in and be super competitive and make some real impacts at the customer level. Nextiva takes a slightly different approach, but again, you see this monthly price with 100 interactions. You got to kind of read the fine print when they talk about interactions, and this is actually true with, I saw somebody mention in the retail and another service that they've used. Same thing, read the fine print, because when you do, you'll see that there's a lot of added associated costs. We've taken a very simple approach to our costing, which we'll explain later on. But the important part here is I think you're going to find that when you're ready to go out and compete, you're going to be in a great place.
Yeah, and guys, Wayne's being reserved on talking margins, but I'll be a little edgier. I'm telling you right now, at $59, 100 minutes, you're making 75% margins on that all day, right? And that's pretty much at starting prices. We are pricing this product not for what the market dictates today. We're pricing this product for where we think it's going to be 2 years down the road. In full transparency, we joke around, right? And people ask me sometimes, like, we have talked about pricing. Okay, well, why this price? Why are you so much less than X person? And the answer is, I want to show up in some magazine somewhere saying the guy who destroyed the industry and dropped the price, right? I want to be that guy. The thing here is, we want to beat the Nextivas and the RingCentrals of the world before they really get any kind of market share or market dominance. We want to empower you guys to go out there and bring these agents to your customers at a better price point that they're getting from the Nextivas of the world, and with better feature set and better experience, so that really you can just start generating minutes. And to me, what's exciting about this is that we're not talking about like a $3 add-on, a $5 add-on, or even a $59 add-on. I think you guys both, all of you know, the average agent is not going to do 100 minutes a month, right? If the average PBX user does 450 minutes, it's not crazy to think that the average agent, which is perhaps taking on the workload of a few inbound users, could be using 1,000 minutes a month, right? 5,000 minutes a month, especially as you get into your enterprise deals where the value is at. So this is an opportunity to bring in big figure revenue and add that to your bottom line.
All right, so we've got a near-term roadmap that I'm going to share with you, because these are pretty much locked and loaded. We've got a long-term roadmap which got some pretty cool stuff on it as well. We're not going to share that, because until we're locked and loaded on that, I don't want to get too far ahead. But third-party agent control will be available through a public API. So we'll be releasing a public API, and that'll provide you some additional options depending upon your customers' needs. Outbound calling is something that we plan to release. It's a high priority for us. It is within a 60–90 day window that we expect to have that. And that is essentially triggered by integrated apps. So a simple way to think about that might be, I've got a delivery at a warehouse. I'm a warehouse. I got a delivery to a customer. The application I have tells me that 24 hours in advance of that delivery, I've got to notify the customer via outbound call, or potentially, I think somebody asked this question about SMS, and we'll talk about that later on. That may be an option as well. Ambient and background sounds. This allows for a more realistic calling experience. So if you've heard a agent where the it sounds kind of like dead air in the background, it's a little obvious that it isn't necessarily a human you're talking to. This adds a little color to the experience where you've got a something like an office sound in the background, paper shuffling, people kind of like wandering in the background, that sort of thing. SIP header injection is another feature we plan to add. This allows us to add some additional details to the agent at runtime. So think things like in the SIP header, we've got tos and froms and caller ID. That may be useful information to use within the agent's experience. Then we got native RingOS and billing integration. So one of the advantages we see here is that we've got a robust billing engine. This is going to fold right into the RingOS billing engine in the same sort of way that you'll be able to package and price things as you need it. So you're completely in control of how you go to market with this as a solution. So think of this like you would any other of your voice services. You have complete control on pricing and packaging. And then, as Albert alluded to, the standalone SIP agent is on the roadmap and is actively being worked on as we speak.
So I got a few questions, and I think we missed Kurt because he asked it twice. Does this have press/stay-DTMF capability?
Can you read that again, Jamie? Does it have what? DTMF?
It says press/stay and then -DTMF capability.
Yeah, inbound and outbound. So on the inbound side, it can identify DTMF presses or says. And on the outbound side, it can implement DTMF presses. So if you're running an outbound campaign and your agent hits an auto attendant, for example, and needs to hit an option or dial an extension to get to the person, your agent can do that for you.
And I think we got everything else earlier.
We've got a few here. Let me
did you see some more?
Yeah, besides the summary of the call, do you do sentiment or detect specific voice? So I'm going to make an assumption. I'm going to make an assumption here, and correct me if I'm wrong. But I think when you're talking about live during the call, a sentiment, or that's how I'm perceiving that, is will the agent understand if a caller is frustrated or upset? So Albert, you want to take that?
Yeah. So one of the things that a multimodal LLM does for you is improve your ability to do exactly that, right? So when you're using a pipeline system that's relying on chunked text, it's very difficult to understand, like I said before, paralinguistic cues, emotional cues in conversation, because you're getting chunks of text. You ever see the, how do I give it? I was going to talk about an old commercial, but nobody's going to remember that. So in any case here, what happens is, because the audio goes directly in, it's really able to understand exactly what's happening. So it can understand if you're getting upset. It can understand if you're a bit frustrated. It could obviously understand, curse words or frustration keywords you might put inside. So it does have a certain level of emotional intelligence that's provided by the model that you don't typically have with pipeline systems.
So here's another one. Jeffrey, thank you very much for the compliments. Albert, and these were directed towards you and your knowledge. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, guys.
To further elaborate on his question here, actually, I'm just going to summarize exactly what he's asking. If I don't know this stuff, will RingLogix support and build this stuff for us based upon a customer request?
Yes. The answer is yes. And there is a lot more yes at the beginning, right? So Jamie's going to kind of talk about next steps when we're done with this little Q&A piece. But essentially, we are going to be making the services, not to spoil what she's going to say, we're going to be making the services available for free for about 60 days. During this time, we encourage you to just use it as much as you can and get access to it. But the answer is yes.
Okay. And then Elias texting. So there's actually a couple different questions around texting. So I think we probably
Texting.
want to explain
So
to
so
you
texting is possible. We already have so we have a the product is being released to you guys today, and it goes into official. It is a production ready platform. We already have some production agents on it. We officially go into production with billing on April 1st, like we're going to talk about now. Now, one of the deployments that we have, the partner actually deployed an agent using N8N, and that particular agent is sending and receiving SMS messages through the NetSapiens PBX, right? At the moment, it requires using just a generic webhook node so that we can connect that generic webhook node to the specific user to be able to send and receive the messages. So the tools to do it are there, and we know we have a path for it. The question is going to be how much activity we see in that area, and if we want to make something that's a bit more native where you don't have to connect it through a tool, but rather perhaps it can just be a toggle in the portal.
And yes, 10DLC would still apply, correct too, right, Albert? That was a couple
Yeah,
questions.
messaging is messaging,
10DLC
right?
is always
Yeah.
if an
Messaging is
outbound
messaging.
text is sent, it's got 10DLC.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's a human, a baby, your grandmother, or an agent. They all have to follow 10DLC rules.
Tim asks, can we use custom 11 Labs voices?
So we are going to be supporting voice cloning. Wayne didn't mention it there. It's on a shorter list. So once we roll out voice cloning, it'll be available. We don't know exactly what the fee is going to be on it yet. There's a particular licensing model that we're working out, but we do plan on making it very affordable. So yeah, you'll be able to clone voices, and you'll be able to use those voices inside the system. And they are provided by 11 Labs.
He said he's going to use your voice, Albert.
My voice is terrible. You don't want my voice for this.
I think we got them all, Wayne, to be honest with you.
We did, yeah.
All right, cool.
And Albert stole my thunder twice, but it's okay because he's the boss. But
I do that. I get. I'm sorry.
That's it. I'm teasing you.
I'm sorry.
All right.
All right. So let's go ahead and get to the.
Yeah. So next steps, guys. So like Albert said, next week we're going to kick off our 60-day FlowbotAI go-to-market campaign. All right. So what that means for you guys, during this window, you can get onboarded, you can get training, and you can start building, for all of you that asked, right, real proof of concepts for your own business, for customers that have come to you. You can start to, visualize those, get your hands on it. So basically during this time, this is really important. These services are going to be free for you. Okay, free during launch period. So, and like Jeffrey, what we were talking about, there are projects that may qualify for us to sponsor like professional services for you. Okay, so we'll have to talk about that. But you're going to get this 60 days free. So it's going to go officially into production April 1st. So the sooner you get on board to getting your trainings done and playing around with it, you're going to get to test, tune, and just be confident when you launch it April 1st to your customers. So I have some training courses that are going to be available, right? Not going to take you more than 20 minutes. We're going to give you a registration link at the end of one of the courses, or it'll be we'll make it a course itself. It'll be a landing page where you can register to meet with Partner Growth Manager. And, then we can coordinate your like full launch. We'll be able to maybe go over pricing a little bit later down the road with you. There will have to be, agreements signed before April 1st, where we'll present you with pricing. It's awesome. So look forward to that. But that'll be with the next 60 days. You guys will be able to. So everyone that asked if they could get their hands on it in the chat, yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah, Jamie, and I almost talked about this before, and I cut myself halfway, so I probably gave an awkward answer to something. So before somebody asked about professional services, right? And I said more at the beginning. So ideally right now, we're very interested in everybody's success. We want to see these pilots continuing to go out there. So if you have an interesting project that we believe can turn into a production project, we are very interested in helping you. We're willing to sponsor it, either ourselves internally with our own resources, or perhaps with even some of the vendor partners that we've created relationships with. So we are looking for opportunities to build out use cases where we can say, okay, for this particular vertical, we built out this agent, we implemented these systems, and like that, you have the win, you have an actual reference, and you can go ahead and continue selling that. So any opportunities you have, please bring them to your success manager. We'll evaluate them. Going forward, professional services will always be available, right? So depending on how much you need, we can then discuss what the options are. But professional services will be kind of like the ones we've done in the past, very, affordable, very fairly priced. Our professional services are not a revenue generator. They're more of a necessary evil to get things done.
Yay. I think we're good. Thank you so much for the extra time and hanging with us. Hopefully we used it for things that were important. I don't think anyone was actually too long-winded today. So we did just lots of information. So
Cool.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And don't forget, get into the university, go to the FlowbotAI intro courses. Make sure you knock out the first couple courses. At the end, you have the registration link. The faster you register, the faster you get access, the faster you start building, and the more free time you have with the agent.
And that'll be available Monday, gang. So if you go in there today, you might see some courses, but you won't see the registration link. So I would ask you to wait till Monday till it's all fully baked. But I think you could actually maybe see them today, but Monday would be the go-to day.
Correct. And as a reminder, you'll be getting another welcome email to let you guys know it's official.
Cool.
Cool. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We do appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.